Hello, welcome to another video on a watercolor painting to help you with possible Christmas designs. The idea here is to be creative, to learn a basic small painting technique of watercolors that's called wet on wet. I'm starting with Strathmore watercolor paper, 300 grams per meter squared, I believe. It's called 140 pound, cold press. This is a 5x7 card. You can buy cards that are that size with envelopes. And you tape around 1/4 inch with just normal masking tape. And this kind of greeting card is just your own creation. I'm going to show you how to make a wreath and maybe an evergreen branch. So the size of paintbrush I'm using, it's called size 3. Oh, this is a 2. You can use size 3, which will hold a little bit more pigment. And then this filbert brush, I believe it's called, and it helps you to get fine detail in, very sharp detail at the end. Now, you also just need some container for water. And like I said, tape it onto a board because we're going to be moving the board around to allow the paint to flow. I will try to paint quickly. You can pause the video at any time if you need help or want to see something up close. I'm going to start with water, and I'm going to dip into the water and put it onto the brush and put it on so that I can do my background. So I'm not going to do all the background at once. I'm just going to do one corner and another corner. So where I'm putting the paint is just sort of diagonally across my card. Of course, this is upside down for me. Okay. Now, since I'm painting kind of a green, evergreen colored wreath, my background can be any color that contrasts. I mean, you maybe don't want red because even though they're complementary colors, you just maybe want to have sort of a blue or purpley kind of background. So I keep my paints on a tray. And if you say you want to try a color, you can take a extra piece of paper, test out, do you like that color? Try the blue beside it. Is that one different to you? Try the next color. They all vary a bit if you have lots of paint. And you can decide which one or a combination of them. You can mix your blue with your green, create your own color. Or you can create lots of purples. So mix some magenta with your blues, create your own color. And when you have what you think colors you like, they may appear lighter on paper. You should take the color that you've achieved and put it across your painting. Now, I'm putting my color in the corner, and then in order to draw it this way, of course it should drip if there's water there. If there is no water, you can pull it across by dipping your brush into the water and making it go across. Now, I don't really want to have a distinct line of where the water stopped and where the pigment, where the white paper began, so I'm filling this all in with water now, but just to dilute the paint. Kind of want to do your whole background at once so you don't see layers of drips of water on top of dried parts of your painting. Now you can see I kind of have a lot at one corner, so I'm going to actually put some more pigment in there in this corner. I can see I've used a little bit more blue. And so I'm going to tip the painting so that it runs. Now, it's not going to run diagonally, but you can make it run vertically or horizontally by where you put the water. and it'll flow into the wet areas. You can tilt your board to see the flow. Okay, and I'm going to try and get a little bit more in that corner. My wreath, I think, will be somewhere in this area, so I kind of want the color to be in these corners. See that? It's where I put paint and took it off, so it's going to be a different effect. Or maybe there was something on this paper. I don't know. It's okay. And then I'm going to set it aside to dry. Now in the second card, I'm not going to do the background first. I'm actually going to do the green wreath part first. Now a wreath is going to be sort of round, so I'm putting the water on in a kind of a crisscross X pattern. And I am just putting it like little strokes. And then I'm going to choose my green. Now the kind of paint I'm using is tube paint by M. Graham. So this color is called cobalt green. There's so many greens to choose from. If you use sap green, that's very common. This is a brand called Q-R paint, and it's got a permanent green light. I put them once again into my tray. And if you add yellow to them, that changes the green. If you add blue to them, that changes the color. If you add black to the green, it also changes the color. So once you take your paint and you try it out mixed with, say, black, and you test it out, you can come up with maybe a color you like. It's kind of an evergreen color. On the other hand, you can do that right on the painting. So I'm going to take my evergreen color I created and just dab it where I think the water was. And it sort of paints itself because the water was already there. But if not, I'm just doing little strokes of green. This is the cobalt green. The bright green. I'm varying the length, and I'm varying where I put them. Kind of going around. Notice they're not going anywhere other than where the water was or where I put the paintbrush. Now you don't have to create the perfect circle because it's a wreath. And while it is still wet, you want to actually pull some of the color out from the wreath by touching the wreath with a wet, watery paintbrush. So you want it to fade into your background. You can put this water through the wreath if you like, and let it drip. I'm going to kind of create a diagonal. Okay. And maybe diagonal this way. So I'm kind of pulling the color away from the wreath. This way and this way. You could do it up and down as well. And then I'm going to set that aside to dry and work back on the one that had a background. Now the background, you might be able to see, is still wet. So you can start your wreath. It will be very it will flow into the background. The colors will mix with the blue. Or you can wait till it's drier. Here's what I mean. If you do start your wreath, see how it flows into the other color. And kind of, you can't get very distinct branches. So with the wet on wet technique, you're going to get very fuzzy looking appearances unless you wait for this layer to dry. So I am actually going to wait a little longer on this painting. All right. If you have this very absorbent paper, it doesn't take long to dry. And you can tell by touching it how dry it might be. Okay. So I'm going to layer some sort of darker green onto my wreath now. A little bit of black mixed with a little bit of green. The black is sort of turns gray when it dries. But as you can see, maybe it's created kind of a darker color. Once again, I'm kind of going around my wreath in different areas. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to create different amounts so it's not the perfect branches. Some stick way out. Some are blacker than others. I'm going fairly quickly. Okay. If you want to sort of mix a blue with a green, sort of a tealy blue, you can. So this color is kind of a blue mixed with a green. It's kind of hard to see on my screen because of the lighting. It's quite bright in here. But you experiment as to what kind of green you like. Greens there's so many varieties of them, depending on whether you mix more blue or more yellow with the actual color. Now, to me that looks kind of a yellowy green. Okay. Once again, now that I've added really different colors, I can put water to pull that color through the wreath, or pull this new color in this direction by putting water and spreading out the pigment. It's a very flowing kind of color. Even if I drip onto the painting, where the drip lands, the color will flow. You kind of don't want drips, so that's why you want to keep moving it. I'm, of course, holding it up to the screen, so it is kind of dripping mostly downward, but you can drip it side to side. Remember, it's a card. Maybe your sort of the mat of the material maybe goes left and right. Maybe you want it to go left and right. But the idea is you don't really see brush strokes. You just see dissolving of the pigment into the background. Try not to have lines. So try to just pull it over, paint right over top of the masking tape. And it's okay to have areas that are completely white. We just basically want these four corners to be different. That adds interest. We also don't really want things in the center. Notice I put it to one side. You kind of want to paint on a third to offset it. It's just more balanced. You also need a balance of light and dark. Okay. I'm going to let this dry. All right, time for more layers on this wreath. Once again, I'm mixing blues, and blacks, and greens. You can dip in your water to kind of dilute it. Dab onto a paper towel even to dilute it. Look how dark that is where it's dry. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Different directions, different sizes of strokes away from you so they taper maybe. You just want non-consistent little branches, because we're assuming this is made out of kind of spruce or pine needle type wreath. Dip into the water if your pigment looks too bright. Water it down. Now I'm kind of doing this upside down, so try to kind of turn your painting towards you or away from you so that you can see it at different angles, different directions. Is it balanced? This is why we do it on a board. Are you curving your strokes because you're trying to create a circle? See, I kind of did that here. I kind of curved them. Do I want that effect, or do I want them to be more pokey, straight? Can't really tell that unless you kind of sit back and look at it. Now my brush is full of a lot of green pigment, so now I'm just taking water and once again kind of drawing that green pigment into my background, even though my background has already been done and it's bluish. But I decided to draw the green into the background, like my other painting. Lots of water. See it flow along here, pull it onto the tape so it doesn't sort of collect along the